he must also protect Congress and the Pennsylvania government, who have fled west to central Pennsylvania. General Washington chooses the best strategic location for a winter encampment, Valley Forge. The Continental Army's survival is uncertain. Valley Forge is the place where their endurance and perseverance will determine the fate of the Army. Freezing wind blows as Continental regiments march into the farmlands bordering the Schuylkill River. Almost 1 in 4 soldiers are unfit for duty, lacking food, clothing, and even shoes. Hundreds of civilians follow the Army, including soldiers' wives and their children. Freezing rain changes to a heavy snowfall. The need for shelter is urgent. Tents and brush huts are erected first, but are little comfort from the harsh winds sweeping over empty fields. Meals consist of fire cake, a meager bread made of flour and water cooked over a fire.
The Lord said that our commissary of purchases may live on fire cake and water till their blooded guts are turned to pasteboard.
To protect against the elements, soldiers begin building log huts, cutting down every tree for miles. With a fire in the hearth, the huts provide tolerable comfort for those inside. Washington rents a nearby stone house for his headquarters, where he meets regularly with his officers, including Henry Knox, Nathaniel Greene, and later Alexander Hamilton and the Marquis de Lafayette. With food, provisions, and funds lacking, the Army is in a desperate situation. Washington has requested immediate assistance from the President of Congress.
Unless some great and capital change suddenly takes place, this army must inevitably be reduced to one or the other of these 3 things: starve, dissolve, or disperse.
The arrival of more than 12,000 soldiers and camp followers and the building of more than 1,000 huts transforms the rural farmland into a kind of city, now the 4th largest population in the 13 states. To defend against a potential British attack, engineers oversee construction of miles of trenches and 5 earthen redoubts at strategic high points. Muddy roads and a lack of wagons often prevent supplies from reaching camp. The Continental Army seeks food from local farmers, offering devalued paper scrip, which many initially refuse. Instead, Some civilians sell their goods to the British Army in exchange for Britain's hard currency. If caught, they face arrest and a military court-martial. Continental soldiers and officers had expected greater assistance from the local civilians.
We are almost ready to think sometimes that our services are despised, and that our country are determined we shall struggle with cold and hunger without their aid.
A foul stench hangs over the encampment, and unsanitary conditions contribute to epidemic disease. Up to 2,000 soldiers died during the Valley Forge encampment, not from any battle, but from typhus, typhoid, dysentery, influenza, and pneumonia. Washington understands that outbreaks of disease could incapacitate the Army and issues strict orders to improve sanitation. Smallpox also plagues the Continental Army, killing 1/3 of those infected.
Smallpox is more destructive to an army in a natural way than the enemy's sword.
Washington orders inoculations against smallpox. It is one of the first mass immunization programs in history. Its success fortifies the Army for the remainder of the war. In January, a small congressional delegation inspects the camp and witnesses the Army's deprivations firsthand. Some in Congress have labeled Washington a tyrant and have questioned his ability to command. The visiting delegation finds Washington to be a calm, decisive leader. Ultimately, Congress supports Washington's requests and adopts his recommendations, including the appointment of Nathaniel Greene as the new Quartermaster General. Greene immediately begins overhauling the supply chain, increasing deliveries of food and equipment to camp. In February, Martha Washington arrives to join her husband and begins managing the household and entertaining officers and their wives. She is assisted by General Washington's personal cook, Hannah Till, an enslaved woman who is able to purchase her freedom before the end of the war. Throughout the war, thousands of African American men and women sacrifice and serve to win American independence. Free men of color enlist as soldiers in the Continental Army. Some enslaved men also enlist for the promise of freedom in exchange for their military service, while others are forced to serve in place of their slaveholders. In late February, a prestigious Prussian volunteer arrives to fight for the American cause. Baron Friedrich Wilhelm August Heinrich Ferdinand von Steuben.
Never before or since have I had such an impression of the ancient fabled god of war. He seems to me a perfect personification of Mars.
Von Steuben's impression of the Continental Army is not favorable.
With regard to the military discipline, I can safely say that no such thing exists.
The Continental Army is composed of more than 75 regiments from 11 states, each with different training. Von Steuben recognizes that the Army requires standardized training, additional drilling, and improved discipline to more effectively combat the British. Von Steuben's knowledge of European military tactics impresses Washington. He appoints the Prussian Baron to transform his troops. Von Steuben speaks little English and issues commands through translators and gestures.
Ihr seid Soldaten. Denkt wie Soldaten. We say to our soldiers, do this, and he does it. But I am obliged to say to the American, this is the reason why you ought to do that, and then he does it.
Translators carefully record each drill. Von Steuben later publishes his drills and standardized training in a manual known as the Blue Book. Soon, the Army is executing drills with precision, loading and firing muskets, maneuvering in disciplined formations, and effectively charging with bayonets. The Army also needs to improve the transportation and use of its artillery.
Commander, elevate 2 degrees. Elevate barrel 2 degrees.
Crews are retrained under the supervision of General Knox to improve their speed and accuracy. On May 6th, Washington assembles his army on the Grand Parade to celebrate a new Treaty of Alliance established by Congress with France. France now officially recognizes the legitimacy of American independence. The celebration includes artillery fire and a volley of muskets known as a feu de joie, a fire of joy. The new alliance ensures that the Army will be provided with essential weapons, equipment, financial assistance, and experienced French soldiers and sailors to better combat the British. Congress also establishes military alliances with the Tuscarora, Delaware, Stockbridge Mohicans, and Oneida tribes. A delegation of 47 Oneida warriors arrives to support Washington's army. According to oral tradition, the Oneida bring valuable corn for the encampment. An Oneida woman named Polly Cooper instructs the Continentals how to forage and prepare edible roots and berries. The Oneida warriors scout, intercept British supplies, and report on enemy movements. Nearby, at Barren Hill, British forces move into position in an attempt to capture 2,000 Continental soldiers out on a patrol led by General Lafayette. To allow time for the Continentals to escape, Oneida warriors and French volunteers ambush the British. Killed, and 2 are captured in the skirmish. Their valiant efforts helped prevent a disaster. Washington recognizes their bravery and contributions to the American cause.
Brothers, you have been with us a long time and behaved faithfully. I would confirm to you the goodwill of my heart towards all of your nation, the good Oneidas.
On June 18th, the British abandoned Philadelphia. They must divert troops to protect their territories from France in what is now a global war. The next day, with renewed confidence and resolve, nearly 14,000 troops depart Valley Forge in pursuit of British forces. Over the last 6 months, the Continental Army has transformed itself into a more professional and formidable fighting force. Still, General Washington, his army, and its followers face 5 more years of war and even harsher winter encampments.
recital of their sufferings the past winter, exalted virtue and patriotism, and the strong attachment of the officers to General Washington only held the army together.
The outcome of the war remains uncertain, but the men and women of Valley Forge are determined to persevere in their fight for American independence.